I'm a 33-year-old man and my wife is 27. Since the start of our relationship, my wife has been very particular about how things get done and tends to believe that she knows the one true correct way for anything related to anything. She has admitted that she can be a control freak. While this bothers me, it has never been a true deal breaker in our relationship. Very often, when I do just about anything, whether it be a household chore, assembling a piece of furniture, taking a picture, or writing a presentation for work, in a field where I have a master's degree and she has no formal education, she'll do this thing where she'll condescendingly say, "You were so close to getting it right." Really drawing out the "so close" part. I've told her dozens of times that I prefer for her to stop because it sounds so condescending, but she insists that she is complimenting me. I do the dishes and place them out to dry in an orientation she doesn't approve of. "You were so close. Next time, put them that way." I took a picture of her. "You were so close. Next time, angle the camera this way." I complete a project at work and show her the results. "You were so close. Next time, write it this way." For the last 2 months, my wife has been undergoing an intensive hiring process for a job in our city. She works in a highly niche field and seldom finds job openings, and therefore she was ecstatic to have the opportunity for a relatively well-paying job doing what she wants to do. She got to the very final stage where the company was considering 2 people, coincidentally the other of whom was her college roommate. Well, on Friday she got the call telling her thanks for the application, blah 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 blah, record on file, all that jazz. My wife came to me crying, and I immediately comforted her. "And you were so close," blurted out. Her head whipped up and she asked what I meant by that. I said she was so close to getting the job, but was just a bit off. She immediately walked out to stay at her friend's house, where she is currently sulking. She finally sent me a text this afternoon calling me a huge jerk. So, was I unnecessarily being a jerk here? Man, you were so close to being the jerk. But after all you've endured, not in the wrong. Everybody sucks, because this is no way to maintain a healthy, lasting marriage. But given that her reaction proves there has never been anything supportive or constructive about her use of that phrase, I don't know that you really want or need that to be the end goal. If you do though, you two are going to have a series of nice long talks in counseling. OP said that he said it in earnest, meaning that he truly meant it as a comforting statement. His wife dry snitched on herself by taking it as an insult, revealing that she's been undermining his self-esteem with that phrase for the entirety of their relationship. He is definitely not a jerk in this situation, and this falls squarely on his controlling wife's shoulder. Man, I was so close to narrate this story without giggling in the middle. I have 2 younger sisters who are 15 and 17. They came to visit my husband and I on what was supposed to be a 5-week trip. Unfortunately, it had to end early after they were caught following my husband while he was having dinner with a client. I told them they had to leave immediately because I could tell my husband was so close to exploding, and even though they kept begging me to hear them out and to let them stay, I wouldn't. I called our dad to let him know they would be coming home early and why it didn't go over well. My stepmother wanted me to let them stay until the morning so they would fly back in the daytime, but I told her it was impossible and they had to leave immediately. I'm supposed to be visiting soon, but my sisters have told our dad that they don't want to see me, and my stepmother said I wasn't welcome in her house after what I did to them. The reason my husband was so angry is because a client was the one who noticed them taking pictures of them, and when he confronted them, they were rude to her and to him. Am I in the wrong? Okay, is this possible his client is an attractive woman and they thought he was cheating on you and were trying to gather evidence? This sounds like something 15 and 17-year-old sisters could do. No? I replied to this comment. This is immediately why I thought they would be following him. And again, while inappropriate, we are talking about teenagers who don't make the best decisions. Perhaps they were concerned about their big sister. Perhaps a husband was going to explode because he did in fact get caught. We don't know, since the OB didn't allow them to explain and sent them home. Worst case scenario, it was a bad call on the girl's part. But OB should at the minimum care for their safety. My goodness. You are in the wrong for including basically no useful information in this post. If you're not hiding information that hurts your story, you sure do a good job leaving that impression. You are in the wrong. I do not agree with your sisters. I get that they wanted to play spy. But you and your husband overreacted. You could have talked to them at home. Instead, you shipped them back home. And now you're surprised your family doesn't want to see you? For one reason or another, my daughter, now 14 going on 15, has always hated her name, Luciana Emma. Obviously not her actual name for privacy reasons, but close enough nevertheless. My wife and I thought long and hard about her name before she was born. We wanted it to be something truly meaningful, not just a name we chose simply because we thought it sounded nice. We eventually settled on Luciana as a first name, meant as a way to honor my now deceased aunt, who meant the world to me as a kid and who raised me as her own after my mother decided she couldn't be bothered to. I loved and still love everything about that name because it reminds me of her. So I always hope my daughter will grow to love it just as much. The middle name Emma has a very similar story behind it. My wife chose it as a tribute to one of her own relatives that passed away. Unfortunately, as you all might have already guessed, my daughter doesn't at all share my opinions on this. I never understood why. Even as a kid, she'd always complain about how she hated her name and wanted nothing to do with it. One day when she was around 6, she came back from school suddenly declaring that her new name was Ingrid. Again, not the actual name she chose, but close enough. At the time, I just laughed it off as another one of those weird phases kids go through. The name Ingrid really stuck with her for some reason, and before I knew it, everyone around us was calling her that. That's pretty much how it's been ever since. Everyone from classmates and friends to teachers and neighbors. They all know her as Ingrid. She's Luciana Emma only when she's writing her name on legal documents, but never anywhere else. And believe me, I've tried coaxing her into using her very beautiful real name. Tried coming up for nicknames for her to use like Lucy, M, Lucia, or Anna. Tried telling her the stories behind the names me and her mother chose for her, but nothing ever worked. And I still fail to understand this irrational hatred she has for her birth name. Now her 15th birthday is coming up, and she asked us to let her legally change her name to Ingrid as a present. It was a hard no from me, but a yes from my wife, who says she doesn't see the harm in it, given the fact that our daughter has been going by Ingrid for nearly a decade now. And while I do see her point, I think it's such a stupid thing to do. She has such a beautiful and meaningful name and wants to change it to some random one she picked as a kid simply because she likes it more. Moreover, I don't think she's old enough to make a decision like this, so I told her to wait a few more years, which sparked a pretty big fight between me, her, and her mother. Am I the jerk? You are in the wrong. This isn't some passing fancy. She's held on to this name for nearly 9 years now. She's got everyone else saying it too. Perhaps you could pick up 2 sets of name change documents so that when she changes her name to Ingrid, you can change yours to Luciana Emma. If the names mean that much to you, you should use them. But trying to use them on your daughter is not the solution. It is controlling. She's a human being, not property. You are in the wrong. This isn't some phase for her. She's used this name for over half her life now. Her legal name may have special meaning for you, but that doesn't obligate her to enjoy the name. Rest assured that if you deny her this name change now, she'll just do it anyway when she's 18. And many courts will give her special consideration after having Guy by Ingrid for so long. And then you won't have a choice in this matter. Choosing this hill to die on will affect your relationship with your daughter. You are in the wrong. Trying to push an already unwanted name on her will make her hate that name even more. Let her do the name change, or she will hold major resentment towards you. You are in the wrong. You're being selfish here. Okay, you think the name is beautiful and meaningful, but she doesn't. And it's her name. She's been going by her chosen name for almost a decade. It's not a random phase. Get over yourself and accept your daughter for who she really is. I live in an awkwardly shaped cul-de-sac that, if you park a certain way near my house, will block half my driveway. Not a bit like right in front. I have a car that sits low by design, and I need the entire width of my driveway so the car doesn't bottom out. The rest of the entire street is always open. My new neighbors who drive 75 female, 17 female, and non-driving 95 female moved in 7 months ago. They and the same visiting family and maids have repeatedly blocked half the driveway because it is convenient for them as it's closest to their house. Usually it's for a few minutes, but sometimes it's been for hours. It's literally an extra 15 seconds for them to park correctly. I've asked them not to park there, have been super friendly, and advised where else they can park. 99% of the street is open. In an emergency, this is a problem. But I also don't want to ask permission to use my own driveway. At least 4 times I've found a car there and had to find the people/group to move it. And then we have a nice polite conversation about it. And it's always the same 2-3 groups of adults that do this even after several very friendly curbside meetings with them and the family that regularly visits. Sunday I needed to leave in a semi-emergency and they parked there again. I texted to ask if they could move and this time was very direct about not parking there. 30 minutes went by with no response. Saw one of the visiting adults who had been told twice about this leave, and they did not tell the other car to move, which is her daughter by the way. So I called the cops who showed up 10 minutes later and told the neighbors to move as they are parked illegally and will be cited. 1 minute later they move the car and I leave. And the 75 female gives me the evil stink eye, but I did not look over, wave or acknowledge her as before. I have no malice in my heart, but I do not care to continue any further relationship with them. I want them to fully respect my boundaries at this point, and will enforce them as necessary. Am I in the wrong? You're not in the wrong. They repeatedly ignored your legitimate requests. They got what they deserved. Can you check with your town's traffic department to see if there is something they can do that would help? Like no parking signs or a yellow painted curb? Not in the wrong in the slightest. You asked them nicely. They ignored you. Calling the cops was literally the only thing you could do to get them to stop. Hopefully this teaches them a lesson. But somehow, I doubt it. My vote is be pity. Get them towed next time. Not in the wrong. You're pretty patient with them about this situation. That is not a public parking space, but your driveway. You've told them multiple times to stop parking there, and they never listened. It's good that you called the cops on them and that made them learn a lesson. Do not hesitate to call the cops again, since it's a private parking space.